With the 2025 January transfer window now officially closed, in today's video we're going to go through all 24 League 2 clubs and rank their transfer window. We'll have a window winner, we'll go through loads of different categories to see how good your club's transfer window was. If you do go on to enjoy, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Get your thoughts in on your team's window down in the comment section down below. 200 likes on today's video will be massively appreciated. And let's get straight into it. We'll start out firstly then with Colchester United. They had the 5 signings. Tyree Simpson joined on loan from Stevenage. Jack Tucker joined on loan from MK Dons. Michael Forbes joined on loan from West Ham. And then we also saw Kane Vincent-Young return to the football club, and Ken Abo also joining as well. Now, the first 4 signings I do think are really solid. I can't say much about Ken Abo. I don't know much about him. I'm not going to lie to you. I just think I'm not going to pull the wool over your eyes. I think it'd be very easy to tell. We did see some pretty solid departures as well. They finally got rid of Tom Hopper. Matt Jage, the signing that didn't really work out. He's gone to, is that Torquay potentially? We also saw Alex Woodyard leave the club. Obviously, he kind of came in as a knows Danny Cowley type of signing, but that one just didn't really work out as well. Ben Goodliff is going to get some much needed minutes hopefully at Southend, but I certainly would say they're stronger than where they were at the start of the transfer window, so I'll probably put Colchester United in solid there. They've improved. I'll probably give it a 7 out of 10, but nothing really much more than that, to be honest. It was a pretty quiet transfer window on the whole for Swindon Town. We did see a couple of departures. Rosella Longello joined Salford City, I believe, on a free transfer, but they brought in Tom Nichols on loan from Mansfield, which I do think is a solid option. Yes, he doesn't score many goals, but I do think can have that creativity at times, and where Swindon were at the time of this signing, I do think it was a much needed option at the top end of the pitch. But they also brought in Connor Ripley on a permanent deal on transfer deadline day. Didn't really work out his time at Port Vale, certainly recently, but has proven in the past to be a very solid League 2 goalkeeper. It was a position that Swindon definitely did need to improve in. Ian Holloway clearly sees a lot of ability in his current squad, but I certainly do think they could have done a lot more business, in my opinion. I do think losing Longello is a bit of a loss, but they have certainly improved in the goalkeeper and attacking midfield striker department, with the signing of Ripley and Nichols. But on the whole, I'll probably stick it in average, maybe a 6 out of 10 at best, but it's certainly not a bad window. They've definitely had a lot worse recently, haven't they? It was a pretty busy transfer window for Walsall. Now, it looks like on the player outs, we're not going to see any players who obviously had their loans terminated, cancelled, recalled, all that sort of stuff. But obviously, the loss of Nathan Lowe was a very, very significant departure for them. Probably the best player in the league, or certainly the best goal scorer in the division so far this season. But they did replace him with Ethan Wheatley on loan from Manchester United, who's got a very good record in academy football. Can that translate into men's first team football? It hasn't really so far. They've also brought in Ellis Harrison on loan from MK Dons, obviously out of favour there. Walsall needed a bit more of a physical striking option with Jamil Matt picking up that injury against Bradford City. I don't know too much about the lad that they've signed from Bromley or the loanee from Birmingham, but I think Nathan Asimwe will provide some competition for Conor Barrett in that right wing back position. I would say obviously losing Nathan Lowe is a very significant loss, and I think there's a lot of pressure on Ethan Wheatley's shoulders. They've brought in another option though in Ellis Harrison. It's either average or poor for me. I just think when you lose 3 loan strikers in 3 different years with Johnson, Draper and now Lowe, I wouldn't say I'm overly confident Ethan Wheatley will be able to fulfill that. I think they could have done with another attacking midfielder. I think that's what Alfie Chang is potentially meant to be, but there's a lot of pressure on I assume, youngster from Birmingham. So I'm going to put Walsall in average for now, but I could certainly see the argument of putting them in poor, to be honest. It was a pretty quiet transfer window on the whole for Accrington Stanley. Jimmy Knowles has rejoined Boston. I think that is, or is that maybe St Mirren? Their badges look very similar, but I assume he's gone back to Boston. He was there last season. He's gone there on loan, and Pickle's also gone out on loan to Southport, potentially. Charlie Brown joined on a free transfer from Morecambe. Not overly convinced by that signing. Joe Brown's come in from Southampton. Not really much business was done. I wouldn't say they're necessarily weaker or stronger. I just think it's been a very average transfer window for Accrington Stanley. They just didn't really do much business. For where they are in the table, I think they maybe could have done a bit more, to be honest. AFC Wimbledon, again, another team who didn't really do much January transfer business. Obviously, they brought in a couple of free agents around December time. Romain Sawyers did move on to Bristol Rovers, which I do think is a bit of a loss for them, but they brought in Marcus Brown. There wasn't really much business to talk about. Morgan Williams, rejoined Dorking Wanderers on loan there. I think Sam Hutchinson obviously came in December, so we can't include that in this video, but they lost an attacking midfielder. They brought one in, very similar in terms of ability. I do think Marcus Brown is going to be a good signing for them, but they're one out, one in, very similar in terms of where they are with the squad. So again, another team that's going in average. They're not stronger, they're not weaker, just an average window for Wimbledon, because I don't really think they needed to do much business. It was a pretty busy transfer window though for Barrow. This is what this type of video is for. Lots of outgoings, lots of incomings across two different managers as well. Obviously Stephen Clements and is it Andy Wing, their new manager as well. Kyle Cameron's come in on loan from Notts County, went up to Scotland for the first half of the season, was given the captaincy, then stripped to the captaincy, then sent back to Notts County. He's now joined Barrow. He's scored an own goal or two. He's been at fault for like 3 or 4 goals already. He's turned out to be a shocking signing so far. Aaron Presley, I do think will turn out to be a decent signing. I don't know too much about Leo Duru, who's coming on loan from Blackburn. They brought Tyler Smith in on loan from my team Bradford City. I think if he gets a consistent run of games, could turn out to be a decent signing for them. Already found himself on the score sheet as well. Seemed to score a lot of the harder goals for Bradford City, but then missed the easier type of chances. But I do think that could prove to be a solid option for them. MJ Williams has joined from MK Dons, which I do think could be a decent signing. I had no idea his name was Michael. I actually thought his first name was MJ. Seeing it as Michael Williams there, I was about to say, who on earth is that? And obviously, the big one, Ben Whitfield, has returned to the football club on loan from Burton, where clearly Gary Bowyer doesn't really fancy him. In terms of the outgoings as well, Chris Stokes joined Fylde on a free transfer. Ogungbo has joined, is that Aberdeen or Hamilton? I don't really know who that is, on loan. Rory Feely also left the club on a, I believe, undisclosed fee as well, which, you know, I'm sure their fans were pretty happy about, because I don't think it really worked out for him there, despite his stint in goal for one of the games. Dom Telford joined Barnet on loan, getting one of their bigger earners off of the wage bill. Again, just a signing which didn't really work out. And obviously, Jed Garner joined Morecambe on loan as well, another option for them at the top end of the pitch. I would definitely say they're stronger coming out of the window than where they were going into it. They've improved in the holding midfield department. They've obviously brought in Ben Whitfield, who had some great attacking flair as well. Presley and Smith, I think, will score probably 10 goals between them. I'm not convinced by the signing of Cameron, but on the whole, they're definitely a lot stronger coming out of the window than where they were going into it. So I'd stick them probably right at the top of solid. I think they've had a really good transfer window. My team Bradford City are up next then, and we had a very busy transfer window. We also saw players like Chet Diabate and Ollie Sanderson have their loan spells cut short. Joe Adams as well was another one. But we'll start out with the incomings then. George Lapsley, Brandon Kaler, Michael Mellon, Tommy Lee, Romney Critchlow, Joe Hilton and Teo Adaramola. 5 signings for us, 3 on loan, 4 permanent. George Lapsley, I can't say I'm entirely convinced by that sign. I think he'll be a solid option for us to have, but I don't ever see him being a regular in the team unless we do get a fair few injuries, in all honesty. Did very well with Mansfield a couple of seasons ago, but his time at Gillingham didn't really work out. Brandon Kaler's only played about 10 minutes so far, but looks pretty tidy on the ball. I do think his minutes again will be limited with him being a lone player. Michael Mellon has come in and again really struggled for minutes. Just the 1 appearance for him so far on off the bench, but he looked like a handful, and I do certainly see him being a long-term replacement for Callum Cavan in terms of this season. I certainly see him working his way into the side, and by the end of the campaign, I think Michael Mellon will have played a decent amount of games. Tommy Lee, I think, is our best signing on paper. 2.5-year deal. Can play as either an attacking midfielder or as a striker. Physical sort of player, 6'3", but also pretty decent technically. I think he will turn out to be a solid option for us. Then, not a lot happened until transfer deadline day. We brought in Romney Critchlow on a free transfer from Peterborough. He's returned to the club following Kieran Kelly's injury, so I do think that will turn out to be a pretty smart signing. Joe Hilton is another goalkeeping option for us to have, which again, I think will prove to be a solid bit of business, because we've needed a second choice proper goalkeeper for a number of years. We've just had our 40-year-old goalkeeping coach as our number 2, and obviously Teo Adaramola will come in and provide some competition in left wing back for Tyreek Wright following the injury to Lewis Richards. We just spoke about Tyler Smith going out on loan to Barrow, positive to get his wages off the wage bill. Corey Evans wasn't off the new contract and then joined Oldham Athletic on a free transfer. He wasn't given a new deal because he was very injury prone. In his first game at Oldham, he picked up yet another calf injury, and obviously the big one was Vidane Oliver leaving to Shrewsbury Town on loan. Again, if they're even paying 1% of his wages, that's positive news for Bradford City because he was useless. Hasn't scored in the league for over 2 years now. Absolutely terrible. I think we've had a really positive transfer window on the whole. I did a full video in a bit more detail for Tier 3 channel members, so if you're interested in that, feel free to check out the channel membership scheme. But I certainly do think we've come out of the window a lot stronger than when we went into it, so I'll probably rank this window an 8 out of 10. I don't think we're far off, in all honesty. Maybe even an 8.5 out of 10. It's just a shame we didn't get another striker in. A physical sort of striker, someone like Connor Wickham in the free agents, maybe until the end of the season, who knows. Bromley FC had a fairly busy transfer window, but the only problem is I don't know a lot about a lot of these signings, so it is going to be a little bit hard for me to really talk about them in a lot of detail. They made the loan of Ben Thompson into a permanent, which I think will prove to be a smart recruit. I don't know too much about Ilunga or Mayer. Maldini Kakuri is very good on Football Manager. Whether he's actually decent in real life, I guess only time will tell. Harry McCurdy is back in the Football League. His time at Hibs did not work out whatsoever. He's back with Bromley. I think if any manager is to get the best out of Harry McCurdy, Andy Woodman is certainly the man. I do think that will prove to be a solid signing. They had a fair few departures as well. Callum Reynolds joined Boreham Wood, I think rejoined Boreham Wood on a free transfer. They did sell Amanchi to the league leaders Walsall for an undisclosed fee, which again I don't really know too much about him because I don't know too much about all the players. I can't really comment all too much, so I guess I'm just going to have to put them in average just because there's a lot of unknowns for me in my personal opinion. I'd love to be educated down in the comment section down below, Bromley fans, because I just don't know too much, but I think Harry McCurdy at Bromley, I see that one working out, to be honest. Carlisle. Well, they had a very busy transfer window, didn't they? And then they sacked Mike Williamson on transfer deadline day. They've since appointed Mark Hughes as their new manager. I've done a full thoughts over on TikTok about that appointment. It's over 4 minutes long. It's at @SamDrake_. I think there's a link in the description as well. But wow, their transfer window on the whole actually has been pretty positive. They've got rid of some players who just really weren't good enough. Jack Robinson's gone to Hartlepool. Taylor Charters have gone out on loan to Scotland. Luke Armstrong, that signing didn't really work out. He's gone out on loan to... Yes, she's fine, thanks. Tyler Burry was released by the club. Harrison Neal was sold after just a year to Fleetwood Town. He's really linking up with Pete Wild. John Mellish finally got his move up to League One with Wigan Athletic, but it sounds like they got in a pretty decent transfer fee, and Ben Williams was released by the club. In terms of the incomings then, Will Patchin has joined from the League of Ireland. Elliot Embleton joined for an undisclosed fee from Blackpool. Sedwin Scott joined for an undisclosed fee from Notts County. Paul Dummett signed on a free transfer from Wigan. I think had a car crash, so missed one game, and then inside the first 5 minutes of his next game picked up quite a long-term injury. Stephen Wern once again doing that Gateshead to MK Dons to Carlisle sort of transition like Mike Williamson, but again he's obviously now unemployed as well. Charlie MacArthur joined on loan from Newcastle. Joe Hugill spent the first half of the season with Wigan, joined on loan from Manchester United, and Josh Williams signed on an undisclosed fee from Birmingham. Their squad is without a doubt a lot stronger coming out of the window than where they were going into it. It's business that they did need to have. I don't think it's an amazing window, but they're definitely in with a contender. I'll probably put them in not far off being window winners, but I think they are actually far off. But they're a lot better than solid, so they're going in that category. It's my video. Complain in the comments if you want. Cheltenham Town had a fairly quiet transfer window. They got rid of a few of the higher earners out on loan to National League. You weren't really getting the game time. The likes of Tom Pett, Owen Evans as well. Harrison Sona is hopefully going to get some much needed experience with Wellstone. I'm going to guess that badges. They brought in a couple of signs. I don't know too much about Power or Ade Dukan, but Tim Dieng joins on loan from Gillingham. I think that's a good experience signing. Will offer you competition in centre half, holding midfield, central midfield, attacking midfield, striker. He can play in any of the positions down the middle. Good profile, good experience, good pro. I think on the whole, it's just been a fairly average transfer window for Cheltenham. Chesterfield FC are up next then, and they had, again, a fairly busy transfer window. Obviously, it doesn't say on the players out, but the loss of Dylan Markande is certainly a very significant one. He's joined Leyton Orient on loan and looks to be a really talented player, even in the division above. They've not really lost anyone too significant. They've brought in a few decent signings as well. Donasian joins from Ipswich, where he's kind of loved by their fans there. Jack Sparks joins on loan from Peterborough, and then at the Posh didn't really work out. Going forward, I think will be a decent player, just has question marks over him defensively. Kyle McFadden joined to try and provide some competition in the centre-half department with the amount of injuries that they've had there so far this season. I think got injured for the rest of the season in his first game, which is just terrible news for them. Dylan Duffy joined on loan from Lincoln, then after a week was sent back to Lincoln, and then they bought him. I've never seen anything quite like that. And Michael Olakigbe joined on loan from Brentford, he's had 2 failed loan moves now to League One with Peterborough and Wigan, so it'll be interesting to see, can he handle the pressure of being a Dylan Markande replacement. Their window, though, certainly was a positive one. They've come out of it a lot stronger than where they were going into it. They did lose James very low too at Wycombe, which I do think, in terms of ability, is a bit of a loss, but seems to be potential attitude, maybe a bad egg around the dressing room. So I do think that is a little bit of a blow, but on the whole, for me, I would certainly say Chesterfield have had a very solid transfer window. Crewe Alexandra had a pretty quiet transfer window. They brought back 2 former players on loan to the football club. Tom Lowry joining on loan from Portsmouth, obviously central midfielder, did very well in his previous spell with the club. And is it Connor O'Riordan has joined on loan from Blackburn? I feel like he's a centre half. He could be a central midfielder. They're obviously a lot stronger coming out of it than when they were going into it, because they've lost absolutely no one. They've lost Lund on loan to Southport, so I'd definitely put them in the solid category. Not a lot really to write home about for Crewe, but they're certainly in with a shout now of the playoff automatic promotion sort of picture. Doncaster Rovers, on the whole, had a pretty quiet transfer window. Rob Street joins on loan from Lincoln City, which I do think will prove to be a decent signing. Has had a few loan spells around the Football League, really. He's spent time with Shrewsbury, I think, Cheltenham as well, and obviously they brought in Charlie Crewe on loan from Leeds, who I don't know too much about. They lost Kyle Hurst to, I think, the Scottish Championship, which I was really surprised by that, in all honesty. I know they've got a fair few attacking options, but when Doncaster came to Valley Parade, they are the only team to beat Bradford City at Valley Parade in the league so far this season. Kyle Hurst was comfortably their best player, and I know we shouldn't judge it off of just one game, but I was certainly surprised to see that. Ben Close, again, hasn't done much really since leaving Portsmouth. Was very good, I think, in his first year with Doncaster, but then the injuries have really plagued him, and he's obviously gone out on loan to Eastleigh now. I would definitely say they're stronger coming out of it than where they were going into it, but again, just probably a 7 out of 10. Solid, average. I'll probably put them in solid, but I could certainly argue average, in all honesty. It is very similar to Swindon. You know, them two could easily be changed, to be honest. If you are enjoying today's video, don't forget to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new, and put a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. It's all free to do, and it really, really does help support the channel. We're on the road to 11,000 subscribers now, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Gillingham up next then in terms of their incomings. They've brought 5 in. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know anything about any of their signings, which is a little bit of a shame. One of the 2 players that they brought in, I think it was Kumbene, looked to be a decent player, and I think actually got injured in his first game. Jimmy Morecambe comes on loan from Chelsea. If he's at Chelsea, surely he must have some pedigree. Cornish has come from Liverpool. Again, if he's come from Liverpool, surely he must have something about him. They got rid of some of their higher earners, the likes of Tim Dieng and George Lapsley have both left the club. Obviously, Lapsley joining my team, Bradford City, on a permanent transfer, and Tim Dieng going out on loan. So they're certainly reducing the wage bill. I think the appointment of John Coleman seemed a bit of a strange one at the time. I think they should be planning for the long term, really, because they're not going to be in any trouble of relegation. They're definitely not going to get in the playoffs. That appointment hasn't really worked out so far, so I guess this transfer window was kind of just maybe rescuing the wage budget a little bit, but I wouldn't say they're particularly stronger or weaker. I think they need to do more business, in all honesty, but I can understand why they haven't. So again, they're probably just going to be another team that go in that average category. There's been a lot of 6, 7 out of 10 transfer windows so far from a lot of clubs. Fleetwood Town had a pretty active transfer window. They did lose a pretty significant blow in Carl Johnson, who's gone to Peterborough for apparently €400 million, which is what, about £300,000. Apart from that, I don't think they've lost anyone really too significant. Liam Shaw got a step up to Northampton, but I wouldn't really say that's a massive blow, and they got some of their youngsters out on loan to Ireland. In terms of their incomings, Sean Rooney rejoined the football club, very talented right centre half, right wing back, will score goals from set pieces as well. Kean Harrott, his loan move was turned permanent, but I think they paid money for him, but he's actually only signed on a deal until the end of the season, so I don't really know what's going on there. Maybe an option of a further year, but his spell again out on loan didn't really work out. Scored the odd goal, maybe 1 or 2 here or there, but I'm not really too sure why they've made that one permanent. Harrison Neal joined from Carlisle, obviously spent time previously with Pete Wild at Barrow, so that signing does make sense. I don't know too much about Brandon Cover, and I'm pretty sure Louis Marsh, he's either a striker or a goalkeeper, which I know seems very contrasting, but I'm going to assume striker by his picture that we can see here on bsoccer.com, a website I've not actually used before in a video, but seems to clearly be fairly accurate. So I would rate Fleetwood's transfer window as a positive one on the whole. Losing Johnson, though, it brings it down a little bit, so I think I'll probably put them in average on the whole. I'll stick them in between Wimbledon and Accrington. They could have done a bit more, especially in them midfield sort of positions. If you got rid of someone like a Danny Mayer, I think they'd have been a little bit higher up for me. Grimsby Town had an incredibly quiet transfer window. They sent Rakeel Pike out on loan to Eastleigh. They brought in, is it Dara Burns from MK Dons, and they brought in Turi as well. I've no idea about these two signings. I know Rakeel Pike didn't really work out as a signing for Grimsby, so getting him off the wage bill is obviously positive news. On the whole though, I think they could have done a bit more if they really were serious about getting into the playoffs this season. I'm sticking them in average. Harrogate Town, I would say, have had a positive transfer window on the whole. I really like the signing of Ben Fox from Northampton. I think he signed a 2.5-year deal. His time there didn't really work out, in all honesty, but was excellent for Grimsby a couple of seasons ago. They brought in Ollie Sanderson as well on loan from Fulham. Obviously spent the first half of the season on loan with my team at Bradford City, and I think on the whole will actually turn out to be a decent option for them. I just think at times the big crowd did get to him a little bit, but has certainly got a bit about him, in all honesty. Their other signings I can't say I know too much about, in all honesty, but they've got rid of some players who weren't really playing much football, like Stephen Duke McKenna has gone to St Johnstone on loan. They got rid of Admiral Musquet, who wasn't offered a new contract, and obviously Samuel Fullerin went to Hartlepool on a undisclosed fee as well. On the whole though, I would definitely say their squad is stronger than where they were at the start of the transfer window, so I'll stick them at the bottom end of solid. I think they could have done more business, but obviously they are working on a small budget, so I'll stick them in solid. MK Dons had an incredibly busy transfer window. There was a number of departures. We actually got a scroll for the first time to see some of the transfer business, but we'll start out with the departures then. Tommy Lee went to my team Bradford City for an undisclosed fee, obviously a signing which didn't really work out there with the whole George Baldock incident. It was kind of understandable why their fans were frustrated with Tommy Lee, especially with his poor performances on the pitch, so I think it made sense really for all parties for him to get a fresh start. Stephen Wern wasn't getting much football under Scott Lindsay, so that does make sense. Ilunga, again, I don't really know too much about. Harness going out on loan to Southend I think is positive. Tripp going out on loan to Gateshead I think is positive. MJ Williams wasn't really the right profile for a Scott Lindsay style. I think he'll work well at Barrow. Jack Tucker was not going to get minutes this season, so that made sense to get him out on loan. Dara Burns as well wasn't really playing much, so it made sense to sell him. Dennis, I think, was an okay option at times, but clearly Scott Lindsay didn't fancy him. Tom Carroll, I think, will prove to be a really good signing for another League Two club, but again, Scott Lindsay just didn't quite fancy him for some reason, but I see someone like a Notts County picking him up and turning him into be a really good player. Ellis Harrison again found himself out of favour, gone out on loan to the league leaders. There's a lot of players who have left the club but have actually made a step up in terms of the league table. You look at Tommy Lee, Ellis Harrison for example as well. Joe Pritchard obviously did very well with Accrington. His time at MK Dons just didn't work out. Since then, all of them have obviously picked him up, and I think he'll work out pretty nicely there. I'm going to have to take a breath here because of how much business they've done. They brought in Josh Williams from Crawley. I don't think that profile picture is accurate, but I think it's Josh Williams. The holding midfielder, or is it Jay Williams? I think actually it could be, from Crawley, who I think will be a decent signing for them. Dan Crowley probably signing of the window. Yes, they paid apparently 350 grand for him, but one of the best players in the entire division. I think Notts County were going to lose him on a free transfer in the summer anyway, so it made sense for that. I think he's got a couple of goal contributions already. Tommy O'Reilly joined on loan from Aston Villa. Can't say I know too much about him. Nathan Thompson joined from Stevenage, and I think in his first game got injured for the remainder of the season. Sanders I don't know too much about from St Johnstone. I don't really know too much about Patterson or Truman either. Danilo Orsi obviously did excellent last season in League Two with Crawley Town, and obviously linking up with his former manager. I certainly see that one working out once again. On the whole though, I think they've got rid of a load of players who were never going to play. They've brought in some real talent as well. MK Dons already for me are in a real contender to be in that not far off category. We'll come back to the window winner at the end. I think MK Dons won the window in the summer. Will they make it back-to-back window winners for me? Understandably, Morecambe didn't really have a busy transfer window, in all honesty, because they were under an embargo for quite a long time, but they brought in Andy Dallas and Jed Garner on loan. I think the signing of Andy Dallas will prove to be a really good signing for the Shrimps. 2 goals on his debut. You can't really ask for a much better start than that, and they got rid of Charlie Brown to Accrington Stanley, who wasn't really playing all too much because of the situation that they're in. We know they needed more recruits, but they couldn't really do that, so I'm not going to be overly critical on Morecambe given their circumstances. I don't think they've had a Terry Tink. I don't think their window's been that bad, but it was a poor window on the whole. But unfortunately, it was for because of circumstances out on their control. Jason Whittingham needs to sell Morecambe Football Club for the sake of their fans, their players, but I really do believe Derek Adams is cooking something up there. I see Morecambe surviving this season. I said it at the start of the season, I'm still going to back them now. I don't see Morecambe going down. Newport County had a fairly busy transfer window. I don't think they really lost nothing too significant in terms of their departures, but they've brought in some decent options as well. At the signing of David Ajaboye on loan from PTB United, I think he'll get goal contributions for them. Didn't really work out during his time at the Posh, but has proven League 2 pedigree with Sutton United, obviously. I don't know too much about Davies, Warren or Patton, but Josh Martin did very well on the whole with Notts County. They were just looking for something a little bit different at that time, but I do think that's a smart pickup for Newport County. They got rid of Luke Jeffcott, who a couple of seasons ago was bagging goals for fun with Plymouth Argyle in League 1, but now finds himself playing probably in the National League, maybe even National League South with Maidenhead, Truro, one of them teams I guess. On the whole though, for me, Notts County definitely come out of the window stronger than when they went into it. I'll stick them just above Harrogate in solid for me. Notts County had a very interesting transfer window because they undoubtedly lost one of the best players in the division in Dan Crowley, but they got a very good transfer fee for him. So it's about how do I want to rank this in terms of just the player or in terms of the value that they've got for the player as well. But they did bring in Will Jarvis from Hull City on a free transfer. They also brought in Charlie Whittaker, which isn't on here. So I'm hoping that for other portions of the video we've not missed any signings. If I have, blame bsoccer.com. But Will Jarvis comes in from Hull City on a 3.5-year deal. I see Zach Johnson being a good loan signing from Sunderland, and they've also brought in, is it Marley Traore from overseas as well. I think it's similar sort of signing to Alassane Jatta. I think this one's coming from Denmark. Alassane Jatta was from Norway. It might have been the other way around, but obviously they're using both their ESC allocations on them two players. There was maybe rumours of Jatta leaving the club, so the fact they've managed to hold on to him is good news. Obviously, Jody Jones is still with the football club again, which is positive. I do think the loss of Dan Crowley is very significant. I do think on the whole, in terms of ability, they've come out of it weaker than where they were going into it. I'm not going to lie to you, but that's only because I don't know too much about Traore. But I don't think you could ever really find someone who's going to replace Dan Crowley. I don't see Jarvis and Whittaker getting anywhere near the goal contributions. Notts County fans, you might disagree with me. I do think it is positive that they've got rid of fringe players like Scott, Cameron, Stone, Martin, who weren't getting that much football recently. On the whole, though, for me, Notts County, I'm sticking them in port. I think their squad is weaker. Shoot me down if you want, but losing Dan Crowley is significant. They've got a brilliant theme for him, but I think it is still a massive loss for the football club. Two can both be true at the same time. I bet you all thought we were going to Port Vale next, but I'm going to throw you off. Tranmere Rovers didn't really do much business. They did also bring in a double loan signing from Manchester United, which hasn't been put on here yet. Again, that does concern me that we've missed further transfers. I'm not going to be relying on bsoccer.com too much going forward, but they brought in Jake Garrett on loan from Blackburn. Apparently, they didn't really lose anyone too significant. They did send Sam Taylor out on loan to Oldham right at the end of December, so we'll include that in there. They needed to do a lot more transfer business, and from that point of view, they need to get a lot more players out, get a lot more players in. Maybe they're waiting until the summer to do that, but when they're in free fall at the moment, I think it's just 1 point picked up out of their last possible 15 available. They needed to do a lot more business. Yes, their squad isn't necessarily stronger or weaker, but their squad is just weak generally. They needed to do a lot more business. It's a shocking window from Tranmere Rovers. They're going straight in that Terry Tinker category. Without a doubt, the worst transfer window of any League 2 club. Port Vale, I would say, have had a pretty solid transfer window on the whole. They sent Rory Patton out on loan to Dundee United for him to get some more regular game time. I don't think he necessarily got much of a chance under Darren Moore, in all honesty. They got rid of Connor Ripley. That signing didn't really work out. I assume Broom has come in to be the number one at Port Vale, and obviously they released Connor Grant as well. This is the former Plymouth Connor Grant, not the former MK Dons Connor Grant, who's now at Notts County. There's too many Connor Grants. I really like the signing of Jaheim Headley from Huddersfield Town on a permanent transfer. Left wing back, I think he'll provide some real attacking force down that left-hand side. Defensively pretty solid as well. Did very well with Harrogate over the last couple of seasons. I would definitely say they're stronger coming out of the window than where they were going into it, in my personal opinion. So I'll probably put Port Vale in that solid category. I'll stick them in between Doncaster and Newport. Let's move on to the final team. And if you've not already, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Come on, how many times I've got to ask you? Just hit the bloody buttons. Not my buttons though. Please do not hit my buttons. Salford City are the final team then. They didn't really do too much business. They got rid of Luamba on loan to York City. I think he'll get some much needed game time there. They brought in in Rosell Ongello on a permanent transfer from Swindon. I believe it was a free transfer as well, so I think that'll be a solid signing for them. Again, younger player which Kyle Robinson will look to develop in their charge for the playoffs. Lewis Warrington has also come in on loan from Leyton Orient. I think they've had a good window. Could it have been better? Yes, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. Nothing really much more than an average transfer window for me. So there is my ranking then. Who are the window winners then between MK Dons, Bradford City and Carlisle United? I'm not going to give it to Carlisle because they sacked their manager on transfer deadline day, and maybe that's not necessarily a reflection of the transfer window, but you've given a manager a full month to recruit players and then you've sacked him and brought in Mark Hughes, who plays a very, very similar style. So maybe it was a master plan. We'll use Mike Williamson to get his connections and get all these good players, and then we'll go and appoint a very similar manager in Mark Hughes and hope for something different. Maybe that was their thinking. Bradford City, the only reason why I'm not going to give it to us is because we didn't get another striker in to replace Verdane Oliver and Andy Cook. We need another target man at the top end of the pitch, in my opinion. So once again, my transfer window winners are MK Dons. I think Scott Lindsay has got rid of players who weren't going to play, probably on big wages as well, and they've recruited it very smartly. They brought in one of the best players in the division as well, in Dan Crowley. Let me know down below, do you agree or disagree with my ranking? Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. 200 likes, as said at the start of today's video, will be massively appreciated, and I'll see you very soon for another one.